of the Cursed Lake. Chapter 13. The Breaking of the Curse. Part 2. After revealing the truth, Lilith left me alone with it. What now? Accept it, forgive, and then go on living. Live with the crushing weight of knowing that someone's unreturned love, someone's old wound, someone's malice had stolen my wife, that it had taken Anna from me, my former body, all those lost souls that came before us. Just because it could. Number, I had not come this far to surrender, not to forgive, and certainly not to forget. I would place Lilith's fate before the judgment of the village. I would tell them everything. Who was behind the disappearances, the sorrow, the broken lives that had haunted this place for generations. Lilith had known all along. She had known everything from the very beginning, but she had hidden the truth, shielding herself, shielding the legacy of her bloodline, as if it placed her above it all, as if it didn't concern her, but now it would. I would bring the truth to light. Let them decide. Let the people deliver their verdict. And I would be the executioner, the one to rip that wretched heart from her chest, burning with fury and a resolve that would not bend. I headed for the village. I didn't hide anymore. I looked each passerby in the eyes, like a ghost returned from the grave, an echo freed from silence. I stopped them in the streets, gripping their shoulders, making them turn and listen. I knocked on every locked door. I was unrelenting. People recoiled from me in fear, from the recognition of something that had once been human. I showed them the wounds that refused to heal, the black thorns piercing from beneath my skin, remnants of the transformations that consumed me night after night. And I told them my story, told them the truth I had uncovered about this place. They listened. The expressions on their faces were a mix of horror, understanding, and perhaps recognition of familiar patterns, the quiet repetitions of fate they'd each lived through long before Anna and I arrived. What I told them was no revelation. Not truly. They had always known somehow. Perhaps through local folk tales. Perhaps through the primal instinct that lives deep within all of us. But what was new, what struck them like thunder, was the reason behind it all. Lilith, or more precisely, her ancestor. Lilith had known, and she had kept it to herself. Had she spoken earlier, how many souls might have been spared? How many lives saved from this cursed existence, from endless loss, from anguish and fading? When I had said all there was to say, night had already fallen. It was time to return to the lake, time to become the guardian once more. No, I had not yet found salvation, but now They knew. All of them knew. And it was no longer legend. It was truth. The next day, the village exhaled its grief into the open air. The story I had told passed from mouth to mouth, trickling through cracks and whispers, building into a river that swept the truth from house to house, from mind to mind. The children stopped playing. The market fell silent. Even the swans kept to the far end of the lake, white smudges against a gray and sullen sky. It started small, a smear of red across Lilith's shutter, the word witch scrawled in crude, angry strokes. Then came the stones against glass. Then came the slam of fists against her apothecary door, the rattle of hinges straining under rage, as a crowd of men and women gathered just beyond her threshold. They never stepped inside. They didn't need to. Their fury was in the air, in the way they struck her name from every ledger, from every record, until nothing remained but a fading memory that someone like her had ever lived among them. She stayed inside. The lights never came on, but I could see her silhouette moving from window to window, as if she were waiting for the anger to quiet, or for the silence to become permanent. I watched from a distance. I did not step in. I said nothing, and there was no need for them to listen to me or to know anything more. Several days passed after the riot. I lost track of time, swallowed by the rhythm of my nightly transformations. But what cut deeper than the pain of change was watching Lilith. How she staggered through the days like a hunted thing, no longer a neighbor in the eyes of the villagers, but a witch who had no right to hide the truth for so many years. I saw them turn on her, refusing service, pulling doors shut before she could reach them, crossing the street to escape even her shadow. But Lilith's words about her heart wouldn't leave my mind. It has to be voluntary, she said. A gift, not a theft. The curse was made in hate. It must be broken with something else. And then, one pre-dawn morning, I woke in the stillness of the chapel, the only place left that felt like shelter. The cold clung to me, feathers retreating beneath the skin. And there she was, Lilith. She stood in the doorway, nearly swallowed by the dawn mist. Her hair hung loose, black as lake water, and she wore a tattered morning dress I had never seen before. Dark, threadbare, trailing behind her like smoke. In one hand she held a knife, the same blade from the fresco, the one that gleamed even when there was no light. She didn't meet my eyes. Her voice was calm, almost quiet. As I told you before, it has to be a willing sacrifice. That's the only way to break the cycle. I've always known how this would end. That's why I stayed silent. But now, I'm ready. I rose and followed. My body moved before thought could intervene. We left the chapel behind and stepped into the forest. No marked path, no sign to guide us, only her steady pace, as if she had walked this way in dreams 100 times before. We were heading to the circle of stones, the place where the curse had first been bound, and where, at last, it might be broken. The trees closed around us. With each step, the silence deepened. Above, the sky was dark and heavy, steeped in the stillness that comes before dawn. At last, we reached the stone circle. The monoliths loomed, ancient and indifferent, each one slick with centuries of lichen and sorrow. The grass inside the circle was pressed flat, as if too many feet had trod the same ritual paths. At the center waited the altar, the same shape as the one in the chapel, only older, more scarred. Lilith stopped. She looked at me, her eyes raw, unguarded. "You need to watch," she said. "That's how it works." I nodded, unable to do anything else. She stepped into the center. Her knife glittered in the pre-dawn gloom. She began to chant words I didn't recognize, though their meaning thudded through me like a heartbeat. She knelt by the altar, drew a circle in ash around herself, and lifted the blade with both hands. The wind rose, spinning the ash into spirals that clung to her dress, her hair, her skin. Her voice rose with the wind, then dropped into a whisper so quiet I had to lean forward to hear it. She spoke to the stones, to the lake, to the curse. Then she looked at me. "I never wanted this," she said, "but wanting isn't enough." With unwavering resolve, driven by remorse and the burden of all the lives stolen by the curse, she raised the ritual blade and plunged it into her chest, straight above the heart. The knife slid through flesh like through melted wax, as if it moved not by her hand, but by its own dark will, eager to complete what had long been fated. Blood welled up, blacker than her dress, and spilled down her body in slow, deliberate streams. It pooled on the altar in the shape of a withering rose, a final offering, catching the pale gleam of the moon before it vanished behind the approaching dawn. Before I could even process the horror of what I'd seen, she let the knife fall with a dull clatter, then slipped her hand into the wound she had made. With a soft, shuddering breath, she reached deep into herself and tore out her heart. She held it out to me without a word. I took it. It was still pulsing in my hands, warm, slick with blood, and impossibly alive. The ritual would not allow it to stop. Not yet. "Sprinkle it with your faithful blood," Lilith said. Her voice was ragged, but every word was deliberate. Make the lake see its mistake. Her hands shook, her eyes glazed. Do it now, she whispered, while I'm still me. Before I could reach her, her body gave out. Lifeless, it crumpled to the ground without a sound. I stood there, motionless, staring at her heart, still beating in my hands. My breath sounded wrong in my own ears. The world reeled. Behind me, a branch snapped. I turned, expecting a wolf, a villager, an angry god. But it was Jenkins. He stepped into the circle, his face pale and wet with tears. He looked at Lilith's body, then at me, and then at the heart in my hands. He nodded, slow and respectful. She did it, he said. I always wondered if she would. I tried to speak, but I was numb, drowned in the flood of feeling. Jenkins knelt beside Lilith. He closed her eyes with fingers that trembled, then straightened and faced me. It's not done, he said. You know that, right? I shook my head. She said one heart. That's what it takes. He gave a sad smile. One heart for one soul. Yes. His eyes drifted to the sky, then back to me. But the curse is a mirror, boy. It only gives what it's shown. He tore off his coat and dropped it to the ground. Then he bent down and picked up the ceremonial knife Lilith had dropped. I watched my wife vanish into that lake, he said, voice flat. And every woman who came after, every soul caught in this place's trap, disappeared just the same. I watched you. I watched Anna. I knew how it would end. And as I said, one heart brings back one lost soul. Yes, James, you will save Anna, but not yourself. You'll remain bound to this lake, cursed forever, unless I help you. He looked down, then met my eyes. I heard everything. I know the words Lilith spoke. Oh, they were not new to me. I've been cursed far longer than you, boy. Those words have haunted my dreams for years. I can speak them. I will speak them. And I will give you my heart, so you can break the curse, even for yourself. No, I shouted. Don't you dare. He smiled again, faintly. Take this gift. Let me go. Anna will return. But I will not live in a world where your wife returns, and mine remains just a pale ghost on the water. Her time is long past. Not even Lilith's heart could bring her back. That cannot be undone. But you still have a chance. His voice dropped, almost to a whisper. And I was not blameless either. The lake chose me for a reason. I carry my own sins. Jenkins stepped forward, his eyes glassy but sure. He raised the ceremonial blade, and in a voice both broken and unwavering, began to recite the same words Lilith had spoken. Each syllable landed heavy in the stillness, like stones thrown into water. As the last word left his lips, he drew in a breath and drove the knife into his chest. The blade sank into his chest without hesitation. His breath hitched, sharp, ragged, as he carved deeper, blood flowing in dark, pulsating streams. One hand gripped the altar for balance, the other working with grim resolve. Then, with a gasp that was part sob, part release, he tore the heart from his chest in one swift, brutal motion, and held it out to me, still pulsing, blood streaming down his fingers. Now you have 2 hearts, boy. Break the curse. Free yourself and Anna. But hurry, while they still beat. He toppled beside Lilith, his hand still clutching his chest. His eyes met mine. Don't let it be wasted, he rasped. Those were his final words, just before I heard his last breath, and in that breath, I thought I heard relief. The quiet release of a man who had tricked the lake and cast off its chains. Now I held both hearts, warm, beating, defiant. The ritual was not yet over, but the lake was listening. The stones hummed in anticipation, and the mist thickened, drawing its veil over what had happened here, and what was still to come.